Welcome back to Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. My name's Mark, and yes, this is the Mark Moses Show. Weekday afternoons from 3 to 6 p.m. Right now here on the Club 52 hotline, a very nice man up there in Tallahassee. Covers the Florida State Seminoles for football, basketball, baseball. He does it all for Osceola Magazine. His name is Tim Linafelt. Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Hey, it's been a while, man. I mean, how long has it been since they won the national title?
I guess we're coming up on close to 3 months if it was the beginning of January, and we're pushing into April here. So I guess 2.5 months or so, but it certainly has been a quick couple of weeks since then, for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I wanted to ask you, look, we're here now into spring practice. I know the Gators are going on, but Florida State, national champions, they're back at it as well. And I want to start with Jimbo Fisher. Look, he got an extension. He's won a national title. Is it now his program? I know you'll always have Bobby Bowden. He's a legend. He was a champion. But is this now Jimbo Fisher? Is this now his ship to run?
Oh, absolutely. And truthfully, I think it probably was before the national title. But the way that he kind of, came in there and really wasted no time sort of cleaning house and putting his stamp on things, sort of laid the foundation for the season that you saw last year. And not to say that somebody else, couldn't have come in and sort of done the things to the program that needed to be done, but Jimbo Fisher's the guy that did it, and who knows how things had worked out had things gone differently, with a different coach or something like that. So obviously Florida State is pretty much thrilled with the results of Jimbo Fisher's time at FSU, and yeah, it absolutely is his program.
We're here at Tim Linafelt, Osceola Magazine. Give him a follow on Twitter if you like Florida State at Osceola_Tim. And I just want to ask you this real quick. This is more, you were talking about building a foundation. I know there was upgrades to the facilities last fall, but are there still more to come with the facilities of Florida State with this football program? Are they still making more upgrades?
Well, they're talking about it after opening the indoor practice facility, which was a big project that Jimbo wanted to get completed. That opened last August, and so now they can practice when the weather's bad, which is a surprisingly big deal. Living in the state of Florida, there's thunderstorms, lightning storms. Lightning is the big thing that they worry about. So they no longer lose any practice time to that, and there are plans for facility upgrades, particularly with Bill Campbell Stadium. And also with the Civic Center where the basketball team plays. But those are kind of more in the vague conceptual phases. They talked about adding club seats to Bill Campbell Stadium, doing some things with the end zone, maybe adding some chair backs. But the details on that aren't quite as firm as what we knew was going to happen with the indoor practice facility.
All right. Well, I'm happy you clarified that because I was completely confused. So I appreciate that, Tim. And going back to Jimbo Fisher, what's funny is you're like, okay, it's his program, but he keeps having different defensive coordinators take over every season. I mean, what's going on with that position? Now you got Charles Kelly taking over for Jeremy Pruitt, who moved on to Georgia, but how come there's still a new defensive coordinator every season, it feels like, under Jimbo?
Well, it will be their third defensive coordinator in 3 seasons, so that feeling is certainly justified. It's kind of funny, for Florida State, you go from having one defensive coordinator, Mickey Andrews, from 1984 to 2009, so he's there for 25 years, and then the three guys that follow, you get three guys in the span of about 4 or 5 years. So it's kind of funny how things work out. But I think the feeling was, Mark Stoops, who was Jimbo's first defensive coordinator, certainly with his last name, if he had any kind of coaching acumen at all, he was going to be a head coach before long. So I think everybody sort of knew that. Jeremy Pruitt caught people by surprise when he took the job at Georgia. But, as that decision sort of gets further and further into the rearview mirror, it's just sort of like one of those things that, maybe it is just sort of a strange set of circumstances, but nothing really to get too up in arms over. And then, Charles Kelly, I think, was the obvious choice to replace Pruitt, and that, he was on the staff. He knew the defensive system. And he coached linebackers last year, but he also had experience coaching defensive backs, which is something that's important to Jimbo. He wants his defensive coordinator to also coach defensive backs, so he could do that. And I'm not saying that he didn't look at other candidates, but I think anybody who wanted that job was always going to have a hard time beating out Charles Kelly.
That's a good point. We're here at Tim Linafelt, Osceola Magazine. Well, we're in spring practice, and you know what? I'll start with the defense. What are your thoughts on how they've looked? I know you're going to lose guys to, maybe graduation or the draft, but what are your thoughts on this defense so far here in spring ball?
Well, I think that's the biggest question mark surrounding the team, because the defense, which was number one nationally in total defense last year, they lost a lot of guys and a lot of significant guys at just about every position or every position group. Timmy Jernigan, the defensive tackle, is probably going to be a top 10, top 15 pick in the draft next month. You lose 2 senior linebackers in Christian Jones and Telvin Smith, who are kind of, heart and soul guys. And then in the secondary, you lost LaMarcus Joyner, who was a consensus All-American, and Terrence Brooks, who might have been one of the more underrated defensive players in the country. So they've got some big holes to fill. But, the good news for Florida State is that when you recruit as well as they have, you have a lot of talent waiting in the wings, and a lot of it is unproven talent and guys that haven't had to make plays when the spotlight is on, so to speak. But if you're in a position where you have to replace some big time seniors and some juniors who left early, you want to have guys with the best high school pedigrees, and Florida State really has that. But it will be interesting to see kind of not to beat the cliche of who's going to be the vocal leader or the leader in the locker room, but they lost a lot of those guys who were sort of looked up to by the younger guys. So it'll be interesting to see who kind of naturally assumes those positions.
Tim, isn't it funny, though, going into 2013, it was the same storyline. We lose all these guys to the draft. What are we going to do? We're not sure. And then they have the best defense in the country. Isn't this just kind of deja vu all over again for Florida State?
In a way, it really is, and maybe it should lead to guys like me not being so skeptical all the time. When every time you think they're going to be worse, and they just get better, and I think that really could be the case, especially in the secondary. Obviously, losing Joyner and Brooks is huge, but man, some of the defensive backs that they brought in over the last couple of years, including Jalen Ramsey, who was freshman All-American on some lists, Nate Andrews, who was an underrated recruit who only led the team in interceptions last year. They have guys who are sort of waiting in the wings that you wouldn't bet on them not succeeding.
We're here at Tim Linafelt, Osceola Magazine. Well, let's switch gears. Let's go to the offense. Is it the same thing? Okay, we got Winston coming back, but we're going to lose some of those receivers. I mean, what are the storylines here for spring camp?
Well, the big thing, obviously, that you touched on is that as long as Jameis Winston is under center, I think you have to consider Florida State to be a strong contender to repeat as national champions. But it's not as if they don't have some positions to fill, namely, like you said, a wide receiver where Kelvin Benjamin and Kenny Shaw are both gone. But the good thing for them is that Rashad Green, who really has probably been the most consistent receiver, maybe not the flashiest, but certainly the guy who they can always count on to make the catch and make the play, he'll be back. The question then is who's going to be surrounding him. In fact, a reporter asked Jimbo Fisher last week, his plans to replace Kelvin Benjamin, and he joked that he was going to stack sophomores Kermit Whitfield and Jesus Wilson on top of each other, and maybe the two of them together would make one Kelvin Benjamin. So he knows that it's you're not going to replace a guy like Kelvin Benjamin from a physical standpoint, but you'd like to maybe have a group of guys come in and collectively replace his production if you can help it, or at least try to get close to his production.
What about the running back position? I feel like, look, you got top recruits coming in, and it was a three-headed monster last year anyway, winning the national title. What are your thoughts on this position battle here in spring camp?
Well, I'm really interested to see, Carlos Williams, who made a transition from defensive back to running back early last season, certainly showed plenty of promise. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, and he certainly is the assumed number one on the depth chart going into fall. But then, Jimbo, he's shown multiple times over his career, both at Florida State and previously, that he likes to have multiple backs. He likes to have, 2, 3 reliable guys to spread carries to. And so then the question becomes, who are going to be those guys? And the names that keep kind of popping up this spring have been one, Mario Pender, who's a third-year sophomore who, due to a few academic and off-field issues, has yet to play it down at Florida State. But he's again working out with the team in spring practice. They expect to have him this fall, and Jimbo and some other guys said that he might be the fastest guy on the team, certainly the fastest running back, and has looked great in spring camp. And I think the ability is not a question with him. It's just a matter of getting him on the field. And then a guy that we really haven't heard all that much about, maybe was overshadowed by some of the guys already on the roster, is Ryan Green. He was a sophomore who, when you have three guys in Devontae Freeman, James Wilder, and Carlos Williams already on the depth chart, a first-year freshman doesn't have a whole lot of opportunity to get too many carries. But he looked really good the times that he did get the ball last year, and Jimbo's had a lot of good things to say about him. So I think he could be a factor in that backfield as well.
We're here at Tim Linafelt, Osceola Magazine. Let's get to Winston then. He's playing baseball. He's doing spring practice. Is he just the man now? I mean, can this guy do anything wrong walking around Tallahassee?
It's hard to say, man. I don't know. I don't think they have any roster spots open on the basketball team. But if they did, it wouldn't be the worst idea. No, it really is kind of been something to see, watching him sort of become a promising freshman to, arguably or even inarguably the most famous college athlete in the country. And the baseball thing, it's such a unique way to see, a Heisman Trophy winner. And when you're in a football game, a stadium seats 80, 90,000 people. You're up there, he's down on the field, and you catch a glimpse of him, but it's just so much further removed. Whereas a baseball game, you got 3, 4, 5,000 people, and often if he's pitching, you're not all that far away from him, and the lines that he gets for autographs just about every game, sort of the mob scene. I mean, he's like a rock star out there, and to his credit, he'll stand and sign autographs for 20 minutes before the game, 20 minutes after the game, and would probably stay longer if FSU staff wasn't trying to get him on a bus to stay home. It's really been a pretty neat thing to see this spring.
Well, for some fans who haven't really checked out the baseball team yet, I mean, he's really contributing to help this team, right? I mean, this isn't some sideshow. I mean, Winston can really, pitch for the Seminoles, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's their closer. He throws a fastball in the mid to high 90s, and just the other day at Clemson, with FSU, holding a 1-run lead, they go to him in the 7th inning, and he gets a 7-out save and holds Clemson off the board, and then Clemson's a top 15 team in the country. So, no, he's not just, there, to sort of pay lip service to the baseball team. I mean, he's a member of the team, and he contributes in a big way.
Does Red Lightning help him out in the bullpen as well? I know this guy's super famous. He's so awesome when you see him on Twitter, the ball boy for the football team. Does he help the baseball team as well?
I haven't seen him. I think his football responsibilities probably keep him pretty busy.
Well, I'll have to explain that more later in the show with Red Lightning. But let me end with this. When's the spring game, my friend? When's everything set for the big party to go see Florida State football this spring?
April the 12th. So I guess that's 2 weeks from this weekend.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little spring game, and interestingly enough, as a little note for your listeners, the baseball team will be at Georgia Tech that weekend, and supposedly the plan is to have Jameis Winston up in Atlanta on Friday, send him back to Tallahassee to play in the spring game on Saturday, and then hop back up to Atlanta to join the baseball team on Sunday. So it'll be a busy weekend for him.
Is this the 1-year anniversary of the, Jameis Winston coming out party? Because didn't it start at the spring game last year?
It did, and it will be. And you got the sense that back in April of last year that, you really kind of saw something special with what he was able to do in that game. And, even then, I don't know that any of us in our wildest imagination thought that he would be quite as good as he was. But if there was a starting point, if there's a place where all this started, it was at that spring game.
I would love to be hooked up with the Jameis Winston Florida State helicopter to get him from that spring game to the baseball game. That would be awesome. But
maybe they'll drop him in on a parachute. That'd be the way to do it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. We're at Tim Linafelt, Osceola Magazine. Give him a follow on Twitter at Osceola_Tim if you like Florida State. Tim, love the insight. Always love getting you on, and I hope I can get you on again.
Hey, man, anytime. Glad to do it.